Well, hey there, my name is Luke, and you're listening to the Good Folks Doing Good Work podcast, a podcast where I get to interview folks all throughout the coffee supply circle about the good they're trying to bring into the world, and hopefully remind you to keep bringing good things into this world in your context. So let's get into this week's podcast. Well, today we're joined by Lucia Bawot, who is the founder and CEO of Sana. Her journey is a bit of a winding road, starting in fashion and through photography, leading her into coffee. She's worked for some of the most well-known coffee brands in the world, from Peet's to Fair Trade to Sustainable Harvest to Keurig, Dr. Pepper, and I could keep going. But in 2023, Lucia marked a new chapter in her professional career and independently published her book, We Belong, an anthology of Colombian women coffee farmers. As a result of writing this book and hearing the stories of female coffee producers, she discovered that female coffee producers' mental health was in crisis and decided to do something about it. This year, as a response to this mental health crisis, she founded Sana, an integrative mental health care and wellness program that blends therapy, virtual education, and community-based support to strengthen female coffee producers' emotional well-being to live healthier and more fulfilling lives. I'm pleased to welcome our first returning guest to the Good Folks podcast, Lucia Bawot. Welcome once again.
Thank you. Thank you. It's funny that I'm back, but with a whole new story to tell.
You've reinvented yourself once again.
Totally. These women coffee farmers did it.
That's right. That's right. And thank you to them. Hey, really quickly, I have three things I want to share with you. Number one, I run a consulting firm called Pomelo Coffee Consulting, and we only work with coffee roasters, and we help them with three things: their people, their processes, and their profit. Now, within Pomelo, I also run a cohort called Junto. There's two of them. One's for owners of coffee roasteries. The other one is exclusively for leaders within coffee roasteries, and both of them are structured similarly. They both have a peer-to-peer coaching portion. You can add on some one-on-one time with me. There's some learning opportunities. But man, I gotta tell you, it has been incredible to see what is possible when a group of leaders get in a virtual room together and are sharing challenges, have some learning opportunities, share the things that they're learning, share resources. It's very, very cool. And so if this sounds interesting to you, you can find out more in the show notes, or you can go to pomelocoffeeconsulting.com, and there's a whole tab there for Junto, both of those groups. Now, lastly, I'm releasing a book. It's slated to be released towards the fall, and it's on the framework that I use when I work with clients. So if you want to be one of the first to receive that book, head over to my website. There's a tab for the book, and you can pre-order a book now. Back to the episode. So usually when I open these conversations, typically I lob a softball and we talk about something interesting about your background, or something like the first time you smelled flowering coffee trees. But I don't think that's fair to the conversation we're having, because it's pretty serious. And so we're going to go a little different direction. And what I would like to do is I'd like to share some data around mental health and around female coffee farmers that you actually have on your website. So globally, 1 in 5 women experience mental illness, compared to 1 in 8 to men. But women coffee farmers are at an even greater risk, and we'll get into that in a moment. But just to make this practical for folks that are maybe in your car or something, women perform nearly 70% of farm labor. For example, just imagine there was 100 farm workers on a coffee farm in front of you. 70 of them would be women. And of those 70, 14 would likely experience mental illness, which it's a pretty dramatic number when you imagine 100 people, 70 of them are women, and then 14 of those 70 face those mental challenges. But these are just rough outlines that help us make sense of the need. The challenge is actually even greater and a bit more tactile. See, women often go unrecognized and unpaid in coffee growing regions and just in the industry at large. They face systemic inequities like gender-based violence, limited access to land ownership, and the triple burden of caregiving, household duties, and then farm work too. On top of all of this, mental health services in Latin America are pretty scarce, and there's just 6.8 psychologists per 100,000 people, and most of these are in cities within Latin America. So huge need, not a ton of service options for folks. So if it's not clear, the deck is entirely stacked against women coffee producers and their mental health in coffee growing regions. So with that context and understanding, I'd love to understand from you, Lucia, how is Sana going about solving this massive crisis?
Yeah, no, thank you. Thank you for setting it out so greatly. And I would like to add another thing. And so right now we're working with women coffee farmers and pickers in Colombia. And in Colombia, we have an additional thing to all the things that you mentioned, and is the armed conflict. So women, because they're the ones who are prone like twice as much as men to experience domestic violence. And as you mentioned, to develop mental health illness, because of the armed conflict, this risk is even greater. So these women are more prone to develop depression, anxiety, and PTSD due to all the violence that they experience, because most of this conflict in Colombia happened in rural communities, and a lot of those were coffee growing regions. So that even adds to all the reasons and the data you mentioned. And I love you start with that, because I know in coffee we love data and we don't believe in programs if we don't have data.
Right.
So
Show me the
thank you for
numbers.
doing that. Yeah, exactly. Everyone is like, show me. How are you measuring? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
So how are we solving this? So what I'd like to mention first is that when we think about coffee industry and all the different programs, we often hear gender equity programs. And there are many, but a lot of them had to do with financial literacy, different types of education in terms of like improving the quality of the coffee they're growing, agricultural practices, and all of these programs are necessary and they should continue to exist and grow. But we tend to forget that to be able to thrive within your community and your family, first we need to look at how are you inside. How is your mindset? How are you confident? Do you know what you need and what you want? Are you confident in speaking in public? Do you have the right assertive communication skills that are required to lead within your family business and your community? So this is where we come. We have realized that these women don't have a lot of these skills. And due to this, they're not able to break into these roles. They're not able to make those shifts. They're not able to ask for what they need. So what are we doing? We created an integrative virtual program. Why is it integrative and why is it virtual? So it's integrative because when we approach mental health, we can not only think about providing therapy, we also need to provide education to understand the importance of why we need this therapy. So this is what we have done. We have developed an educational curriculum that is tailored for their needs. And it starts with like psychoeducational things like what is mental health, what is important, how to maximize your time with your psychologist. And then we dive deep into other topics like grieving, assertive communication tools, self-confidence, self-care, which are things that we found in our pilot. And we can talk more about the pilot later. So and then on top of that, we need to include community, because when you look at data in regards to sustainable changes for mental health, yes, mental health is an introspective process. That's why we do therapy one-on-one. But if we don't have a community that can support us, a network where we feel that we belong, where we feel that we can speak openly and that we're whole, then these changes are not sustainable. They're not going to be there. So that's what we provide. Teletherapy, so virtual therapy, education, they call it in psychology psychoeducation, but I don't like to use all those terms because then it gets really confusing. And then community-based support, because we provide this space where these women create these networks. So this is one aspect. This is the integrative part. But then why virtual? So virtual is because when I was doing my book, We Belong, and traveling to all these farms, it became so evident to me that these women are juggling so much. And they have poverty of time. They constantly say, I don't have enough time. I can barely finish all the tasks that I have to do daily. So if we want to create a program and we want these women to be motivated and we want these women to take part and continue and attend throughout the program, we need to create something that they can fit into their busy schedule. So that's why it needs to be virtual, because they're at home. They don't need to leave their farm. They can do it in the comfort and in a safe environment. And this also opens up more conversations around when we do virtual therapy. Is it efficient? It is. It is as efficient as in-person therapy. And in fact, for Sana, we have noticed that because these women are doing all this program virtually and they're not seeing the psychologist in person, they feel more open to explore different topics because they don't have to stare at
Wow.
the
Interesting.
psychologist, sorry. They don't have to, yeah, like they're in their safe space, so they are able to open up more emotionally. So that's what we are doing, and it's 5 months because this is what we found that is the sweet spot for these women to be able to complete the program. Right now we have 100% attendance with the women we did
Wow.
in the pilot and the women that we currently have that are 66 women coffee farmers in Colombia.
Wow. Unbelievable. So there's quite a bit there. And I really love that it's not just sit down in an office somewhere or get on a computer and share what's going on with somebody who may or may not understand what's going on. The education piece is crucial because,
Mm-hmm.
okay, so we're sort of treating something with therapy, but the education is the tools so that I don't have to continue to go through the same things that I went through before. And I really love the community piece. I was listening to, I maybe even have mentioned this on a previous podcast, but I was listening to Simon Sinek talk about, he calls it mental fitness. And he said that he had a friend reach out to him and she was just like really in a deep, dark place. And he said, this friend reached out and wanted to set up a weekly meeting. Hey, Simon, can we meet once a week? He said, of course, we'd be happy to. You're my friend. I love you. I care about you. So they would meet once a week on Tuesday. And by Friday, she, was doing really well on Wednesday and on Thursday. But by Friday, she was just back exactly where she was. And this went on for like 2 months of meeting week after week after week after week. And he was just kind of listening, just receiving. And after a few months, he was like, something is not clicking here. And he asked his friend, hey, can I share what's going on in my life too? And he said within 2 weeks of him also sharing what was going on in his life, his friend all of a sudden didn't need to meet every week. The community piece is crucial. I think it's super, super smart.
Yeah, totally, totally. Because for a lot of these women, the amount of guilt they feel, they think that what they're going through or how they feel is not normal and they should not
Mm-hmm.
be sharing it, or they
Mm-hmm.
should, if they share it, it is like it puts them at a risk of showing vulnerability. But when they start building these networks and listening to other women's like stories and thoughts and ideas, I think it becomes like a place where they say, okay, it's not so bad. There are other women that feel like me and they're in similar contexts than me. And they also see the opposite. They might say, wow, that woman went through a lot. Like I haven't gone through so many things. So I think it puts things into perspective for you, and to be able to open up and not feel judged. I think is we're in need of more spaces like this as a society, not only for women coffee farmers. So I think for them, they feel safe and they love audios. That's something that we have noticed. They love sending audios, and it's so nice when they start creating like these conversations and it goes back and forward, because our educational component is not a one way. We do send a lot of content. A lot of the content is audios and they're therapeutic tales. So there are stories where we explore different concepts, but we also have different activities where they have to engage. They have to send us pictures, audios. And that's when it gets really, really interesting, because they are the ones opening new conversations. They're the ones exploring new topics with us that we immediately add to our list to be able to incorporate it in upcoming programs and adapt the program always to the needs of these women. And I think that that's the success of Sana. We are not building here a program where we are showing ourselves as experts. Of
Mm-hmm.
course, we have psychologists that are professionals and they have a lot of experience working with rural communities. But I think the value that we have is that we are super adaptable in
Mm-hmm.
so many different ways. And one of those is that all the data we're collecting, we're using proactively to understand that our program is in constant change and it needs to be in constant change. And we need to adapt per cohort, per region. Because again, and this is a conversation that is for another time, but I do feel we tend to put coffee farmers, men and female, in the same bucket. And then the regions and then the countries, and we feel everyone is the same. Well, they're so diverse. And I
Right.
think that's when it gets tricky. If you create like a model and you just create this model that is not adaptable and is created by experts, but these experts don't even know the people that are accessing the services. So for Sana, adaptability is the first thing. And even for scheduling, so our program doesn't run from Monday to Friday office hours. Our program runs from Monday to Sunday, any time of the day. A lot of these women are doing the sessions at 6 a.m., 8 p.m., 9 p.m. So it's pretty adaptable. And I think that's something that we have heard from the women themselves as feedback, that they love that we are able to provide that adaptability, because that's the only way they can finish the program and still be motivated, because they know we are there for them.
Wow. That sounds like an incredible challenge to service folks that need completely different schedules. How have you sort of mapped that out and determined how to structure how you're caring for these folks?
Well, I think what it is my background in photography. I feel that as a freelance, that's basically like how I felt always. Like, you're doing so many things at different times and
Yeah.
you're being called at any time of the day, and like weekends are not weekends really.
Yeah.
So when I was traveling to these farms, I noticed the same. I think for a lot of these families, like their schedules are completely different from what we're used to, right? So when I was creating this program, that's why I say it has to be virtual, because we have to meet these women where they are, but we also have to meet these women at the time they can be there for us as well.
Right.
So our or the team, like we are constantly like feeding this idea that adaptability is success for us, and that is not an issue, is not a challenge. The opposite is our opportunity to understand their needs. And I think that's what we haven't done in the coffee industry. We think we know the needs of others and we try to replicate things that work in other spaces. But what if we stop trying to replicate and copy and paste things and actually seeing and listening to how they live? And then that's the way that you can start fitting other types of programs and educational components within a community. You have to meet them where they are. You cannot meet them where you want them to be. So yeah, that's how we work from Sana. And of course, this brings way more layers of complexity for us.
Of course.
Because it's like you have a psychologist at 9 p.m. calling you or texting you, I had this issue with this woman, and we have connectivity issues. And so how do we train and onboard our psychologists so they understand that this is this is a piece of the Sana puzzle,
Right.
and it's not a challenge. It is what it is.
Yeah. It's part of the approach.
Mm-hmm.
I love the phrase how you said adaptability is success for us. And
Yes, totally.
man, it's just because every coffee farm is different. Every coffee farmer is different, and their access to internet, I'm sure, is different. And there's just, man, you've got a lot of challenges to face. But so we're kind of dancing around the stigma around mental health being something that keeps folks from actually enrolling. In the US and in consuming countries, it's just pretty normal that folks go see therapists. Is this actually something that you've seen as being a hindrance for female coffee producers who need these resources?
Yes, and that's why when we approach them, when we are recruiting like groups of women, we never use the term mental health, because we don't need to. So we always approach it from emotional well-being, wellness, and we always create analogies of like, okay, you take a shower every single day, you clean yourself, you smell good, you put on your best clothes, but what about your internal self?
Mm.
Like, how clean is it in there? Is there things that you need to take out? Is there things that you need to bring in? And I think for them that is an approach that doesn't make them feel like they're gonna be diagnosed, that they're sick, that they're crazy. Is the opposite. It's like, huh, yeah, interesting. I do feel that I haven't paid attention to that side of my life.
Mm.
So we've been lucky that these women have been so open. We
Mm.
haven't had any issues with women saying like, oh, no, 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 I don't want to join this program. And we always send messages and testimonials, audio testimonials from past participants um, from different regions of Colombia where they express like how they joined the program, they did it, and how much has benefited them in different
Mm.
parts of their lives. So I think that also helps. So yeah, we haven't had any issue. And a lot of them, like in the pilot, 82% of those women, or sorry, 62% of those women told us that they knew they needed this kind of support. And the
Wow.
remaining told us, I have nothing to lose. I want to try it out.
What does that conversation look like? Do you typically have a relationship with them already? Or are you handing out a pamphlet? Like, what does it look like to invite somebody to be part of Sana?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because I think it's been so diverse the way that it has happened. So for the pilot, for sure, the women, they knew me. They knew a lot about me and I knew a lot about them. So when I went for the pilot, because the women in the pilot were women that are in the book or I visited to potentially for them to be in the book. So when I decided to open Sana, I was apprehensive. I thought like, wow, what if these women are not interested because they don't know me, we're not so close. But no, the way that we have approached them is, of course, I have a lot of relationships already with different associations and co-ops in Colombia because of the book and my journey in coffee. So I started approaching a lot of these associations, and the way that we do it is that we first do with the leader of the group. We have a call, and I explain to the woman what we do, why we do it the way we do it, and then she knows what are the requirements, and then she goes back with a video invitation that she shows or sends to all the women in the group, and that's how we do the selection. And we have two open calls every year in March and in October where we start calling groups of women for them if they're interested in joining. And we have gotten a lot of response. Like this year, a lot of women
I'm sure.
approach us and they say we need it. We're in need of this kind of program. We have a lot of women suffering. We've heard so many
Mm-hmm.
stories and we don't know how to hold these women within our groups. So I think it's like there are two things. One is like women knowing and seeing that everyone in their community needs this kind of support, and the other aspect is me approaching them and say, hey, I think there are other ways that we should be prioritizing to be able to grow and expand where we want to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the way that we have been doing it. And then the other thing is that we have companies that are sponsors and donors, and a lot of these companies already work with some of these groups of women in Colombia. So they say, we want to sponsor this group that I already buy coffee from. So they bring the group, they bring the funds, and then we start the program. So that's like different channels that we use to approach these groups of women.
Is there a business case for mental health in and supporting mental wellness, I should say?
Yes, there is. So two things. The first thing is that we know a lot of coffee companies, and these tend to be the bigger ones. They are all about sustainability. And we
Right.
have been hearing this for a long time. This is what I used to do. I used to document all those sustainability programs. But what we tend to forget is that mental health is part of the sustainability agenda, is part of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. No one has touched this before, this topic before in coffee. So why is it important for a company and what is it a business case? Because when we think about gender equity and we want more women to be in leadership position roles and we want women to thrive within their communities and we want families and communities to stay and grow coffee, what do we need? What do they need as humans to be able to stay there, right? So we say that gender equity has to start with mental health support because mental health is not only seeing a therapist because you are sick. Mental health is basically the way that we interact with others and interact with ourselves, the way we deal with the challenges in our lives, the way we make decisions and take decisions. This is mental health. So basically, to be able to be a leader, you need a lot of different components. And what we have noticed is that a lot of these women don't have those tools. So one is self-confidence. We notice a lot of these women don't have self-confidence. They don't know the value they bring. They don't have understanding on all the skills they already have. Then they don't have assertive communication tools. So if you don't know how to communicate with your family and your community, how are you expecting to change this cultural and power dynamics within your families and communities? And lastly, farmers already live in a lot of uncertainty, and we tend to use this word resilience as is like the greatest word to use. And I always say, how come more resilient can they be? Right? Everything about what they do is like so uncertain.
Right.
That we cannot change. We cannot change how the weather turns out that year, how the crop turns out that year. But if they have a toolkit that they built where they have different tools they can pull out, and they are better at approaching stress, price volatility, at approaching how they want to become more involved within their farms, then things will work better. Because they're the ones in charge of making those changes. We cannot be the ones in charge of changing the power dynamics within these communities. It's a cultural boundary that is so hard to cross. So gender equity has to start from within, and with the mental health tools, and as you say, mental health like fitness, then you are equipped to be able to be in those leadership position roles. And we measure a lot of this. So we have a pretty thorough data collection where we have designed a SANA index, and we're able to see the impact of the program. And a lot of the impact of the program is on motivation, feeling more motivated to be engaged within your farm and family business, feeling more confident to be able to speak up and have those hard conversations with your partner and your community that before you were not able to do. We also have noticed how they have improved their confidence of speaking in public, which is a big one. When you hear companies
100%.
saying, exactly, our gender equity programs, we provide so many educational components and trainings, but a lot of these women don't attend, or they just attend and stay there quiet. How can we get them to be more engaged? Well, first, it's their work as a woman to work on their self-confidence, their mindset. So now they know, oh, I can speak to, I don't need to know it all. And how do we develop this? It has to be something that they develop themselves.
Right.
So this is what we do in SANA. So yes, there's a business study there, because if you invest in mental health, you're going to have communities that have all these tools to be able to thrive, to be able to grow and understand what they want and how they want it. If we don't do this, no one knows.
Yeah.
No one knows what they need. And this is a ripple effect, because when we think about women coffee farmers, as you mentioned at the beginning, they do a lot of the farm labor, a lot of the household duties, but they also are the ones that do most of the child care. So they're the ones that are engaging with the future generations more than anyone else in their farms.
Right.
So if now they're learning, they have a better understanding of themselves, they have processed a lot of the trauma and pain they have been carrying. But now on top of that, they have all these tools that they learn through SANA and they keep developing. They're going to pass it down to their kids. And these children are going to be able to have those conversations more openly. So, and this is what we start with women. We would love to have SANA for men too, and they need it because men have another set of challenges when it comes to mental health.
Of course.
But starting with women is more impactful. And it even opens up the conversation for men too. We've noticed a lot of comments from the women saying, like, my husband has noticed that I have changed a lot, or he's noticed that I learned that we can have peaceful conversations now, and it's not always like yelling and like judging the other person. So yeah, I think that there's definitely a business case study, because there are two things. So the first one is sustainability. So sustainability is not only about climate change, about water management, about the carbon footprint. What about the humans? I always say, the coffee industry yeah, we love this product. We love coffee and we want to continue to grow and continue to process it and drink it. But if we don't have humans that are living healthy lives, that are living fulfilling lives, and they have a mental, emotional, and psychological like well-being, how are they gonna stay there? They might just say, "This is too much. I'm just gonna leave this farm and I'm gonna start working in the city." So we need to start focusing more on the well-being of the humans, so on the sustainability aspect. But then on the gender equity aspect, I don't think I have seen a program that has been able to change dramatically how a community of women approaches the coffee industry. And I think it's because it has to start with them.
I'm in therapy currently, have been for years, and have struggled with my own mental health. It's definitely a challenge for men because I I personally experience it. But when you are focused on the matriarchs of the family, when you're focused on the women in the household, you're getting two generations sorted out. And if you care for the men first, you're really just doing that generation. And of course there's a trickle down throughout the family, of course, too, if you were to work with men. But with women specifically, you're jumping over future hurdles by solving for today's challenge. And I'm wondering, is this at all connected to the framework that you use, Aaron Antonovsky's cellogenic framework? Is that where this comes from?
Yes, I think that the salutogenesis approach. So basically, what salutogenesis is we don't do clinical psychology in Sana. The way that we approach it is that we want these communities and these women to be healthier.
Mm-hmm.
But how can you be healthier? So then you have to consider the context. So it's not about diagnosis, it's not about treatment, it's about knowing where they are. That's what we always say, like meeting them where they are. Because they're the ones that can develop those tools. They know it, they're intelligent. No one knows better what one's needs than ourselves, right? So that's what I think it came from that approach. And so what we provide is more like a psychosocial psychology, which is more like being there for them, opening up this conversation so they start shifting and being more open to new perspectives. And we have heard this from many testimonials. They say, now I'm able to see things differently, or I have never thought that this is the way that this was happening. And it's because they're changing how they see things. But the other aspect is that we don't want to become a program that they depend on, right? We don't want it to say, okay, you need to continue to be in Sana forever. Otherwise, you cannot deal with your life. You cannot thrive. You cannot have an improved emotional well-being. Is the opposite. It's like opening a door and saying, hey, look, there's all these things that you can do. There's all these things that you can understand and shift. And now they know it. Towards the end of the program, we provide a lot of lines and services that are free in Colombia that focus on mental health. And now they're way more open to reach for those services. Before, maybe they knew they were there, but they didn't know what to expect. And those services don't provide education. Those services don't provide like a guidance of explaining how do we do it? Why do we do it this way? So I feel towards the end of the program, they're definitely more emotionally aware, more confident, and also they have more agency of saying like, things can definitely change. And there are little things that I can start shifting within my family to be able to feel better. So yeah, for sure, the salutogenesis approach is one that we want to continue to explore. And it's all about acceptance and adaptability too for them.
I think the thing that's interesting to me as I was learning about it, this was actually the first time that I had heard of it when I was doing research for this conversation. My understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, my understanding of the approach or framework rather is that it's focusing on the things that make a person well versus the things that make a person sick.
Exactly.
Is that fair?
Yes. How can we be healthier?
Yeah.
With what we have now, no matter what happened to you before, it's like focusing on the abundance of things you have rather than what you're lacking
The
on, right?
lack.
It's like, okay, I
Right.
already, exactly. And I think that's what they, when they enroll in the program, they never feel like, so I still need to learn so much. It's the opposite. It's like, I already knew so much.
Right.
Maybe I didn't have a good understanding on this, or maybe I didn't have the right tool to be able to change this dynamic within my family or this approach. And now I know it. So now I can change things, right?
Yeah, it's so important. I mean, we as humans, and I'm speaking from a Western perspective, of course, but we always think of, oh, we got to find the problem. When we find the problem, we can find the solution. But oftentimes the solution's right in front of us. We need to eat
Exactly.
well. We need to exercise. We need to have good friendships and relationships. And we need to care for our brain as much as we're caring for our body. And those are pretty simple things. And if we focus on that and a little less of there's something wrong with me, to
Mm-hmm.
how do I become a healthy and whole person? And I think that that's really, really crucial about sauna. And I think it's a very wise approach, and it kind of shifts the conversation altogether. And then when you start talking about gender equity and start thinking through, okay, how do we, hey, why aren't you speaking up? Why don't you speak up in the conversation? Why don't you sell your coffee better? Why don't you, oh, no. How do we make you become the person who you already are, and bringing out what you have inside of you and letting you know you can speak up in these rooms, and people will,
Mm-hmm.
some might
Mm-hmm.
not listen, but some people will. And I love that approach. I love it.
Yeah, I feel like at the end, when we think about like society in any role, no matter how high or low it is, it's all about interactions between humans, solving problems,
Mm-hmm.
agreeing. So if you don't have those assertive communication tools, it's really impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And this is for any leader, any
Mm-hmm.
leader. So if we want these women to be able to become leaders, they first need to get the education
Mm-hmm.
and learn their value and how much they
Mm-hmm.
deserve and how they want things to shape for them in
Mm-hmm.
the future. And that's the power they get from Sana. And the last thing I will say about this is that it's about bandwidth. So yeah, we
Mm-hmm.
talk about building new tools and how you can be a leader and how can you communicate better with your community and family. But we also have to think about the emotional burden.
Right.
So a lot of these women have experienced domestic violence themselves, or violence when they were little,
Mm-hmm.
abuse, or they have they feel that they haven't been able to accomplish a lot of the dreams because they're put in a position of caregivers
Mm-hmm.
since they were so young, and many things, losing loved ones. We have seen grieving is a theme that gets repeated in all of our cohorts. So also doing therapy helps with this, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's about processing what you've been through, re-signifying what happened to you in the
Mm-hmm.
past. And how I always explain it to people is that when you're able to do all these things, you're going to open up space within your brain and your mind. And now
Mm-hmm.
you're going to have more space to think about other things. So if we have all these women with a lot of this emotional burden, it fits all their brain and all their time, they're often thinking about this.
There's no room for new
Then all this,
things.
exactly. And then you have all these companies
Yeah.
offering all these opportunities and programs, and
Yeah.
you don't have the space.
Mm-hmm.
So when you do therapy, the other aspect, you start processing, and we start
Mm-hmm.
processing and breaking cycles of silence.
Mm-hmm.
You start opening up space for new things.
Mm-hmm.
So this is something else that we have seen with women that have gone through the Sana program. They say, I feel so light, like I finally feel
Mm-hmm.
that I can think about other things. I
Yeah.
see things that I didn't see before.
Yeah.
And they did it themselves. It's not that we went there and like did a
Right.
surgery.
Right.
It's like we say, you talk, you finally
Yeah.
talk, or you mention this experience that was so painful. So those are the two components. One is
Mm-hmm.
like leadership, that
Mm-hmm.
is really important for society. But the other one is we all go through a lot of hard things
Mm-hmm.
and trauma.
Mm.
And how are you going to deal with all those things? So those two things are what like makes this into like a business case, because do we want women to have more motivation to work in their farms, to be leaders? Do we want women to be more equipped to be able to be good mothers and be good partners and be good farmers? Well, all of these components are what complete this like little circle.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what we do in Sana, and I do feel that we need to start creating more space for health as
Mm-hmm.
a sustainability goal within
Mm-hmm.
coffee, and thinking more about well-being of the humans.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, we work with women coffee farmers because that's the approach we have in Sana. But when you start talking with any person within coffee, you
Mm-hmm.
start seeing that
Of
people are
course.
struggling.
Of
Yeah,
course.
people are struggling.
Yeah.
Baristas are struggling. Even like CEOs of
Mm-hmm.
companies feel burnout and they don't
Mm-hmm.
know what to do.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think we need to start opening this conversation more
Mm-hmm.
and prioritizing mental health and wellness as the first, like
Mm-hmm.
the core of any program. And then
Mm-hmm.
from there, you can build so many new things and components, and people are going to be more open, and they're going to have more tools to be able to access those other
Mm-hmm.
newer programs.
It's really interesting how you're framing this, because what I'm understanding is that if you focus on the health, both mentally and physically and emotionally and relationally, the other parts of business get notably better. And I can say that from my own personal life, of going through therapy, reframing things, having a look at what do I believe about myself and about my own business and
Mhm.
my own limitations that I've put on myself that no one else has, or maybe other people
Mhm.
have said and I've held on to it. There is a huge business case for this, and I'm reminded of my partner Tori. She's a very powerful woman, and she had some really amazing teachers in school who encouraged her and gave her a bunch of affirmation in areas that she's really good at. And I was sort of the opposite. I don't mean this in a negative way. I just wasn't exposed to those types of things. And so when you talk about,
Mhm.
the ability to stand up in a room and declare your value and articulate assertively what you would like out of it and a business agreement. If you haven't had people in your corner in your life give you those affirmations and clarify, no, you can say this, you just don't know they're there.
Exactly.
And so I think it's super powerful what you're doing for these women, and I think it's very important, and I just want to say thank you for it. It's really, really necessary.
No, no, thank you. Thank you for opening up this spaces to talk about mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like, for me, like, Sana is not me anymore. I feel like Sana
Yeah.
is like my team,
Mm-hmm.
and the women that decide to enroll. I
Mm-hmm.
always tell them, we always have like welcome videos, and I always say, you just have given yourself the greatest gift, because I know for a fact that at the end of this program, you're gonna know who you are, and you're gonna have clarity of where
Wow,
you want to head.
that's
and
amazing.
and even for myself, like, seeing, I'm the one like digesting all the data that we
Mm,
collect. It's anonymous, so I
sure.
at a point, I don't even know who is who.
Mm-hmm.
But just looking at this data constantly, it has also made me more aware of the changes and I need to make in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when the community
Right.
component comes in. When you start seeing others and like listening from other people's voices,
Mm-hmm.
your same insecurities, the same things that you don't want to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
it becomes like really clear, like, wow, I do need to focus on this in myself
Mm-hmm.
too. So I'm so grateful for
Mm-hmm.
each woman that joins
Mm-hmm.
Sana, because that only makes me more aware of the changes I also need to make on myself. Because as women in society, I feel that if you ask any woman, I think there's always insecurities, and there's always like this internal fight of,
Mm-hmm.
how far can I get? This is not for me. I'm not ready. And I think that's why when we think about gender equity, we have to start thinking about ourselves
Mm-hmm.
within. No one else can change it. We cannot blame the men. We cannot blame government, societies. We have to start with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have the understanding, and when you have the tools, and when you have the power and the agency, I think that's when dynamics start changing.
Yeah.
And it's not easy, and it takes
No.
time. And I'm sure you have to break a few things to be able to make that change. So yes, of course, Sana has brought these women a lot of benefits and a lot of wellness for their lives. But I imagine in the future, they might decide to leave their partner, or they might decide to go
Right.
back to university and leave the farm. But what I always tell people is that, like any human, we deserve to make our own choices. And I feel in coffee, we tend to put so much pressure on farmers. They have to stay in their farms, that they have to continue to grow coffee, that they have to make all these changes and measure all these things and change the way they process the coffee. But what about, what do they want? What about their freedom? And I feel that we always talk about the freedom of speech, and that farmers as a general collective, they're part of the conversation. But I do feel there's always like, yes, you can be part of the conversation, but these are the set of rules that you have to follow
Right.
to be part of this conversation. So that's like, and that's more coming from me, not as Sana, from my own like belief that I think Sana is also giving these women dignity and the realization that they have the freedom of do whatever they want in their lives.
Probably the first time they've had somebody in their corner clarifying that and getting them to a place of, have you ever thought about what it would look like for you to not be on this farm? What would that be like? Is that what you want? Do you need to go to school? Do you need to leave your husband? You know, and those conversations are really scary. And on the other side of them, though, it's a lot of freedom, a lot of power, and a lot of right setting of things that possibly have been wrong for a long, long time. And I think that's really, really amazing. So I'm gonna be tough for a minute. I have a little bit of a problem with nonprofits, and it's from my own trauma, working in the nonprofit space and seeing what actually happens to $1 when somebody gives $1. What happens? What's your response to folks that are concerned with donating because they're maybe have distrust in nonprofits? How do you respond to that?
Yeah, that's always a tough question, right? Because when we think about coffee, also we see like these huge corporations, and then we see all these smaller, more specialty companies. And I think it's the same with nonprofits. We have these huge corporations because they're from, in my opinion, a lot of those are not even non-for-profit
Yeah.
anymore.
I
But then you
agree.
have all this, then you have all these smaller ones. So I feel like the wave I'm seeing, and the trend I'm seeing, is that more and more people are starting to invest in smaller organizations because it's easier to see the impact they're doing per
100%.
dollar. So what I will advise coffee companies and coffee folks is let's invest in those smaller organizations. And then look at the approach, like look at the way they're doing it, the way they're approaching the program they're offering, the services they're offering, because a lot of organization is about like checking boxes.
Right.
That's when you have to have an honest and raw conversation with whoever is leading that organization. Like, how are you doing it? Can I see it? Can I join? Can I go to any training? And I think if those conversations were more open, I think you will have a better understanding of what's happening. So I think that's what I will say. And the last thing is, at least from Sana's perspective, all our team is in Colombia. We hire our psychologist in Colombia, the person that leads and organizes all the operational side of things, the photographers, everything that we create, we hire Colombian professionals and Colombian people. And this is another way of impacting a community, because there are a lot of psychologists in Colombia. But as you said in the beginning, those psychologists, for them, it's hard to have to move to a rural area to provide their service. So we're also providing a new way for them to offer their services to grow professional without having to move from where they live. So I think there's impact in different ways, right? So I think that's what you have to look at in an organization. If you start seeing an organization that is providing services for certain coffee origins, like coffee growing countries, and 90% of the team is in the US or in Germany, I think that there's a huge disconnection there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that's another thing that I will always look at. And for us as Sana, so we're small, we're so new. We haven't even been 6 months since we opened Sana. And we already have 66 women coffee farmers. For next year, our goal is to reach 240. And the way that we're doing it is also with partnerships and support from other organizations that we trust and organizations that have inspired us. So for us, we have a fiscal sponsor that is Bean Voyage. And we're so aligned with our values. We both work with women coffee farmers in different origin countries. But more than that, Bean Voyage is also kind of like an auditor figure for us, because they're the ones that make sure that all the donations and all the funds that we raise are being put towards our programs 100%. We're not making any profit out of this money. So I think that also like helps and gives more transparency to anyone that would like to support Sana, having this other organization that has shown that to do a great work with the programs that have developed. So this is the way that we're doing it, because we want to grow exponentially, but we don't want to grow too fast that in a year we reach 1 million. But what about the quality of the service that we're providing? What about this adaptability? What about tailoring all the services to the needs of the women that are accessing the Sana program? So yeah, I think that for us, having that partner has also been a huge push for us, and it gives us a lot of credibility and also a place and like a space where we have an open conversation and we can ask questions that we don't know how to solve. Just ask as Sana.
Yeah. So just for folks that aren't clear on what a fiscal sponsor is, how would you describe a fiscal sponsor?
Yes. So what a fiscal sponsor is, basically, to open a nonprofit in the US is pretty difficult. It requires a lot of admin work. So there is this figure that you can have an initiative, social impact initiative, and you can have a partnership with a non-for-profit, registered non-for-profit in the US, where they're the ones in charge of collecting all the donations that become tax deductible for the other organization. And they also safeguard and like audit what happens with those funds. So that's basically what a physical sponsor is. For us, it makes it more nimble to be able to start and immediately grow. Otherwise, we wouldn't been able to grow so fast. But it also gives donors more transparency and clarity of where their dollars are going.
The U.S. is such a tricky place for nonprofits. And so I really respect the approach of partnering with somebody who's already existing to get you off the ground quickly. But then also, to your point of transparency and auditing, super wise on that side of things, because you can't hide under the radar. And so really respect that approach, and thank you for doing that. So you said you have 240 folks for next year. Your stated goal is 1,000 by 2028. That's huge. What needs to happen to get there?
Well, many things need to happen, but one thing is we need to get to a point that we have a financial stability on funds that are coming and donors that are committing, right? Because giving $5 today, but just giving them today doesn't help an organization. So we are constantly working towards finding donors that are committing for a few years, not only on giving the same amount of money, but growing it exponentially as we grow. So that's the first thing that needs to happen. So we're doing it through different ways. Private corporations here in the US, so coffee companies, small, medium-sized, big ones. And then we are also now starting to apply for different grants. So it's going to be like a 50-50, our approach to be able to get there. with the team that we have now, and because the program is virtual, we're pretty nimble. We can grow like next year with the same team we have this year. And then in 2 years, we only need to add one person. And in 4 years, we only need to add another person. So I think that's also this has the potential to grow fast, but we need to keep ourselves grounded and know what is our main goal, right?
Right.
So I think it's a balance. Yeah, 1,000 seem like a lot, but I feel like the way that we're growing it, we're doubling the amount every year. So we're gonna get there with enough experience and enough understanding of what we need to do. From day one of my biggest goals behind Sana is to create processes. And I think this first year has been a lot about processes. How can we make things more efficient? How can we pull data and change things effectively? And it has given us a lot of headaches and a lot of work for the team this year. But I think this is what's gonna set us for success. So when we have those 1,000 women, we're gonna be fine. So yes, this is what we need. We need coffee companies to be more open to investing in other sustainability programs. Companies that start caring more about the humans rather than just the coffee plant and the coffee bean, and just mindset, like a mindset that is strong and that doesn't get defeated. And I think that's the hardest part for me as the person leading Sana, because I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any experience in the nonprofit world, but I do have a lot of hands-on experience working with coffee communities for the past 12 years, and the empathy and the understanding on the importance of mental health. Because I've gone through my own mental health challenges and I've been so open about it. And even now, being diagnosed in the autism spectrum has given me, again, more opportunities than challenges, because I see the things that cognitively for me are different are the ones helping me to see things in a bigger perspective for Sana. So I think mental health is also a gift to have kind of like a mental health illness or diagnosis. It a lot depends on your approach and the perspective. But yeah, this is how we're gonna get there, and we know this is needed, and we know that the more that we invest in mental health and wellness, the more changes that we're gonna start seeing on dynamics, perspectives, ideas, new ideas for our coffee industry, because everything keeps evolving and we cannot stay behind or stay put. We need to keep moving and evolving too.
Yeah. So good. So the way you get there is mindset, openness to investing, and to having folks give not just one time, but on a reoccurring basis. I found it interesting that only, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it's $25 supports one woman for how long was it? Is that for the full 5 months?
Yeah. So if you give $25 monthly,
okay,
then you cover the cost of one woman per
Got
program.
It. So $25 a month covers one woman for that month.
Yes.
And it's just like that's not a ton of money. And if every roaster cared, they could quickly get you to a healthy place financially. And so, yeah. So I think that's the other challenge sometimes with nonprofits, and for coffee roasters or green coffee importers. So the challenge is, well, how much do I actually need to give for it to start to make a difference? And there's roasters all over the country who could, give a couple $1,000 a month as a charitable donation, and that could really make a difference in the lives of women. So it's good to know. So where do they go to donate?
Yeah, they go to the website. So the website is sanaprograms.org.
Okay.
And there they can find all the information on how to give donations. We receive all the different payments, and even we have capabilities of receiving donations through companies that do they match up your donations. So if you work in Apple or Google, all these companies have those kind of programs where if you give 200 to an organization, they will match it and they will give you 400.
Yeah.
So we also have that capability. And the last thing, since you mentioned roasters, so something that we're doing annually is that we are running two campaigns, one in May and one in October, because those 2 months are really important for mental health. So in those 2 months, we invite roasters and cafes to join, either with a coffee offering or a drink from their menus and their coffee offerings, and donate 10% per bag sold and per drink sold to Sana. Why we do it this way is for smaller roasters and cafes. It is more impactful to come together as a community and as a group,
Right.
and create like an impact in those 2 months. So currently we're running our first October Give Back campaign, and we have 17 companies
Oh, wow.
from the US, Canada, Germany, Colombia, Spain, Austria, that are donating. Some are donating not only from one coffee offering, but a few, not
Yeah.
one drink, but a few.
Wow.
So yeah, that's another way you can get involved. And it's like really low risk, and you
Yeah.
can even promote it for your own clientele and get people excited about
Yeah.
what you're supporting and why you're supporting it.
It's so cool. Is there a list somewhere where we can go buy some coffee from these folks?
Yes, yeah. So if you go to our Instagram, that is
Okay.
Sana_programs, there's a whole post where you see exactly each company and what are the coffee offerings that they decided to choose
Yeah.
for the campaign. So yeah, it's exciting. Like we have Equator, we have Rabbit Hole in roasters in Canada. Like yeah, we have a whole group like Hard Coffee, Stellar Coffee, like a lot of companies that are backing us up and supporting Sana.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, we'll link to the website so folks can donate or set up a reoccurring donation, because that's what we need. And folks can still buy your book, right? At your website?
Yeah, still.
Okay. Very cool.
I keep selling books.
Good. We'll link to that as well on in the show notes as well. Lucia, thank you so much for being here and for being an open book and for sharing about what you're actually doing, and not just the business impact, but the real life impact for the women that you're coming in contact with through Sana. And thank you for taking the initiative and doing something about the information that you learned from writing your book. That's a hard thing to do, and something that I think that a lot of people would probably see the need and say, not for me. So I want to just thank you for taking the initiative and making it happen.
No, thank you. Thank you again for the space. And as I said in the beginning, I feel that those women that I visited, those 62, don't even know how much they impacted my life and transformed my life.
Yeah.
So this is the least I can do. I wake up every morning thinking this has to grow. There's not another option. And the last thing that I will say for anyone that have made it to this point is that remember that gender equity always starts with mental health, and that mental health, it is part of the coffee sustainability agenda.
Yeah. Thank you. As always,
thank you.
Be well. Hey, it's Luke, and I'm back one last time with 2 questions. Number 1, did you learn anything from that podcast? Or did you stumble upon a new question or a new thing that maybe you're not sure what the answer is? If either of those 2 are true for you, reach out to me on LinkedIn, or you can reach out to me at PomeloCoffeeConsulting.com, and there's a contact tab. Reach out to me. I'd love to hear from you. I'd love to hear what questions you have, or maybe what question was answered in this podcast. As always, be well.